Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter number 2, titled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Text number 22. Tattasya kain karyam alambritanno. Tattasya kain karyam alambritanno. Viglapayati angayad ugrasenam. Viglapayati angayad ugrasenam. Tishtan nisanam paramesti dishye. Nyabodayat deva nidarayeti. Tattasya kain karyam alambritanno. Viglapayati angayad ugrasenam. Tishtan nisanam paramesti dishye. Nyabodayat devanidharayeti. Tattasya kain karyam alambritanno. Viglapayati angayad ugrasenam. Tishtan nisanam paramesti dishye. Nyabodayat devanidharayeti. Tattasya kain karyam alambritanno. Viglapayati angayad ugrasenam. Tishtan nisanam paramesti dishye. Nyabodayat devanidharayeti. Word for word translation. Tat, therefore, tasya, his, kain karyam, service, alam, of course, britan, the servitors, na, us, viglapayati, gives pain, anga, o vidura, yat, as much as, Ugrasenam, unto King Ugrasena. Tishtan, being seated. Nisanam, waiting upon him. Paramesti dishye, on the royal throne. Nyabodayat, submitted. Deva, addressing my Lord. Nidharaya, please know it. Iti, thus. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki joy. Translation. Therefore, O Vidura, does it not pain us, his servitors, when we remember that he, Lord Krishna, used to stand before King Ugrasena, who was sitting on the royal throne, and used to submit explanations before him, saying, O my Lord, please let it be known to you. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksul Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we read the purport and we discuss bit by bit from the purport. And in today's verse, Uddhava is remembering Krishna's very humble, human-like dealings with his devotees. And remembering Krishna's humility in how he used to deal with his superiors, Uddhava is feeling great pain that although he's the Supreme Lord, he's taking such a humble position and serving his devotees. And that's what Uddhava is remembering in today's verse. So we'll read the purport. Lord Krishna's gentle behavior before his so-called superiors, such as his father, grandfather, and elder brother, his amiable behavior with his so-called wives, friends, and contemporaries, his behavior as a child before his mother Yasoda, and his naughty dealings with his young girlfriends cannot bewilder a pure devotee like Uddhava. Others who are not devotees are bewildered by such behavior of the Lord, who acted just like a human being. This bewilderment is explained by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 9.11 as follows. Avajananti mamuda manusham tanam ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge belittle the Supreme Personality Godhead. Lord Krishna, not knowing his exalted position as the Lord of everything. So in the purport, Prabhupada is explaining about how Krishna's very beautiful, gentle behavior with his so-called superiors, such as his father, grandfather, elder brother, and also his nice dealings with his so-called wives or friends, contemporaries, or his behavior as a loving, as the son of Mother Yasoda. When a pure devotee, or when a devotee of the Lord, when he hears such pastimes, it doesn't bewilder him. He understands the nature of Krishna, the nature of Krishna's pastimes, his position. But for a non-devotee, when he hears this, it completely bewilders his mind. How can this be the Supreme Personality Godhead? And Prabhupada is quoting from Bhagavad Gita, Avajananti Mamuda, that Shri Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai. Prabhupada is quoting this famous verse from Bhagavad Gita, Avajananti Mamuda, that when ordinary persons with a poor fund of knowledge, when they hear such things, they just belittle the Supreme Personality Godhead, not knowing his exalted position. So what are such activities that Krishna performs? Prabhupada is giving an example of how Krishna deals with his father. For example, in Krishna book it's given that there's one nice pastime where Krishna's parents used to ask Krishna would just be like a toddler, he could barely walk, and just to have fun with Krishna, they would ask Krishna to bring different heavy items from the room. And one time it's given in Krishna book that one time Nanda Maharaj, he asked Krishna to bring his wooden slippers, and Krishna with great difficulty, as a little baby, he would pick up Nanda Maharaj's wooden slippers, put it on his head, and slowly walk towards Nanda Maharaj. And sometimes they would ask Krishna to lift something very heavy, like, Krishna, go lift that table over there and bring it to us. And Krishna, being an innocent boy, he would go over there, try and lift the table, but he couldn't because he's just a little baby, and the table would be too heavy. And then Krishna would be a bit disappointed, he couldn't lift the table, and then it's given in Krishna book that he would slap his hands like that. By slapping his hands like that, he's indicating, at this point of time, I'm not strong enough to lift this table, but soon in the future, my muscles will grow bigger and I'll be strong enough to lift this table. So like this, Krishna used to have fun with his parents, increasing their loving devotion, increasing their loving emotions for him. Now again, when an ordinary person, he sees this, he buys a book, Krishna's Supreme Personality Godhead. Okay, this is according to the Hindus, the Vedic tradition, this is supposed to be God. But how come God is acting like this? He can't even hold wooden slippers on his head properly. What is he doing? He can't even lift a table. How can this be the Supreme Personality Godhead? So for ordinary person, when he hears these pastimes of how Krishna is dealing with Mother Yasoda, how Krishna is dealing with Nanda Maharaj, it completely bewilders him. How can he be the Supreme Lord? How can all the universe come from him? How can he be the Supreme Maintainer, Destroyer, Creator, and at the same time act just like ordinary child? It doesn't make sense. So for that, one needs purification. And one purport in 5th canto, Prabhupada explains that ordinarily, Krishna's pastimes, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai. Prabhupada in one purport or 5th canto, he explains, this is the section of Maharaj Rahugana and Jada Bharat. Maharaj Rahuguna, when he finds out that what a great exalted personality this Jadabharat is, he immediately offers his obeisances unto Jadabharat, begging forgiveness for his insulting words. And he asks few questions towards Jadabharat, and then Jadabharat, he answers his questions. But Maharaj Rahuguna, he couldn't fully understand what Jadabharat was preaching to him. So he again asked that, please can you repeat what you just explained to me in more simpler terms, because my intelligence is not so great, I can't understand what you're saying. And in that section, in one purport, Prabhupada explains that ordinarily, for a common man in society, transcendental knowledge, Krishna's pastimes, they can't understand. It's too much for them, they can't comprehend. Because they're so much absorbed in bodily consciousness of life, that it's very hard for them to grasp transcendental knowledge, it's very hard for them to take in transcendental knowledge. Therefore, Prabhupada says that these common men of society, they should be induced to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. By chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, they will get purified enough, their consciousness will be purified enough to understand transcendental knowledge. Otherwise, Prabhupada is saying in that purport that ordinary, the common men in society, they can't understand. It's too much for them to, it's too big of a leap to go into Krishna Katha, into transcendental knowledge, and it's very hard for them to understand. And therefore, Prabhupada is saying that they need to be given the holy name, they need to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. And by chanting, they will get purified enough, they'll come to a stage of proper consciousness by which they can understand Krishna's pastimes. Now, having heard this, then the next question is, then why do we distribute books? Because in these books, it's all full of transcendental knowledge, it's all full of Krishna's pastimes. Why do we go on the street and distribute Krishna book, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1? Why do we distribute Bhagavad Gita? If Prabhupada is saying the common people of society, they're so much in bodily consciousness that they can't understand this knowledge. They need to chant Hare Krishna, they need to get purified enough, then they can understand Bhagavad Gita, then they can understand Srimad Bhagavatam. If that's the case, why do we randomly just distribute books to anyone and everyone on the street? Most of the people who distribute, they've never heard of the holy name, they're not chanting, they're not purified enough, they're so much absorbed in bodily consciousness. So how can they understand? And this Prabhupada explains in the same purport. So the purport is in like two halves. In the first half of the purport, Prabhupada is explaining that yes, for a common person in society, it's very difficult for him to grasp transcendental knowledge. It's very difficult for him to understand Krishna's pastimes. And therefore they need to chant Hare Krishna, they need to get purified, and after a lot of purification, then they can read these transcendental books. So that's one side to it. But in the second half of the purport, Prabhupada clarifies. He says, but expert, pure devotee of the Lord, he can present the same transcendental knowledge, he can present the same pastimes of Krishna in such a way that even the dull-minded common man in society, even he can understand. So this is the expertise of the spiritual master, a great acharya like Srila Prabhupada. That although, yes, it's explained in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that this transcendental knowledge should be spoken to the devotees. Krishna doesn't say that this transcendental knowledge should be just freely and given to everyone. Because as Prabhupada is explaining that for a common man it will bewilder him. They won't be able to fully grasp the knowledge, they won't be able to fully understand it. But Prabhupada explains that an expert devotee, pure devotee of the Lord, an acharya, he is so expert that he can present the same pastimes of Krishna, present the same transcendental knowledge in such a way, in such a manner that even a common random person on the street, even they can grasp it, even they can understand it. So that is the unique, one of the unique gifts that Prabhupada has given. He's written his books in such a way that any random person on the street with no background in spiritual knowledge, with no experience of chanting Hare Krishna, with zero purification, even the most sinful person in society, he can pick up any one of Prabhupada's books, and if he sincerely reads, he will get some spiritual, he will understand some spiritual transcendental knowledge. And Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj explains that Prabhupada has written his purports in such a way that no matter which level of spirituality you're upon, you will get some benefit for yourself. One can be completely brand new to spiritual life. One could have zero experience in spiritual life. And if they read Prabhupada's books, there will be something in there for them, which will hit out of them, that will help them in their spiritual lives. And on the other end of the scale, one could be a devotee for 40, 50 years. If he reads Prabhupada's books, he'll also get benefit. There will also be some things in Prabhupada's purports which will go address or help the more elevated devotees in our society. So my Guru Maharaj explains this is the wonderful, unique expertise of Srila Prabhupada. My Guru Maharaj gives the example that in some places, we don't see much in Sydney, but in rural country towns where the population will be very less, population is maybe 1,000 or 2,000, in such places, there will just be one classroom, and in one classroom, the teacher would have to teach 4 different grades. So generally in a school, you'll have grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6. Then you have a different school for year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And for each grade, there will be separate classes. You'll have a separate teacher to teach year 2 children. There will be a separate teacher in classroom to teach year 3 children, and so on. But in small towns, country towns, where the populations will be very less, there will only be like 50 students in the whole school. There will only be just like a handful of students in the whole school. So you can't have a whole separate class just for one kid, a whole separate class for 2 kids, like that. So what happens in these small schools is that all these children, they're all combined. So in one classroom, you'll have someone in year 2, you'll have someone in year 3, you'll have someone in year 4, 5, and 6. And the teacher has to be so expert, he has to teach all of these different levels of students all at the same time, in one classroom, in one day. So my Guru Maharaj explains that such teachers, they're very expert. To teach so many different people in different levels, all at the same time, requires great skill, requires great patience and great expertise. And my Guru Maharaj is explaining that this is what Prabhupada is doing. He's not writing his purports aimed at only karmis, aimed at only those who are just beginning Krishna consciousness. He's not aiming his purports only at those who just started practicing devotional service. He's not aiming his purports or writing his purports only for those who have been practicing devotional service for 40, 50 years. No. Prabhupada, in his purports, he's preaching both to the atheists, both to the newcomers to Krishna consciousness, both to the random people around society, those who have just begun Krishna consciousness, those who have been practicing for 5 years, and even to those who have been practicing for decades. All these different groups of variety of levels of consciousness Prabhupada is preaching to, just through the same purports. So in this way, my Guru Maharaj explains just how transcendently expert must Prabhupada be to write his books in such a way that he can reach out to anyone and everyone. So that is the unique gift of Prabhupada, and that's why that although, yes, it is impossible for a person with no purification, with no spiritual background to understand Krishna's pastimes, still it is the unique expertise of the pure devotee of Lord that they can present the same pastimes in such a way that any random person on the street can understand. That's why we freely, without discrimination, distribute Krishna book, distribute Srimad Bhagavatam, distribute Bhagavad Gita. All these apparently very bewildering pastimes of Krishna's dealings with Mother Yasoda, with Nanda Maharaj, with his girlfriends, all these pastimes which seem so bewildering. Prabhupada explains in such a way that a normal person, or ordinary man on the street with no background, even he can understand it. So that is the unique, wonderful expertise of Srila Prabhupada. So that's one example Prabhupada is giving, that Krishna's behavior with his father, grandfather, elder brother, and also his dealings with his wives, friends, and contemporaries. Recently I was hearing one nice pastime of Krishna's dealings with his friends. This is during the forest fire. So one time there was Krishna and his cowherd boyfriends, they were playing in the forest, and suddenly a huge forest fire just came out of nowhere. And Krishna's cowherd boyfriends, and they obviously got afraid, they got scared, and they all took shelter of Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, there's a forest fire, what should we do? And what did Krishna do? He asked them to close their eyes. And all the cowherd boys, they immediately, just having full faith in Krishna, they just immediately closed their eyes. And my Guru Maharaj explains that if we were in that situation, what would we do? Generally, if there's some danger, like say a fire coming towards us, and you go to someone for help and they say, close your eyes, you'll be a bit doubtful. Because if you close your eyes, you can't see where the fire is. Is the fire coming close to me? Should I run this way, that way? So it requires a great amount of faith to follow Krishna's instruction to just close his eyes. Ordinarily, my Guru Maharaj explains, if we were in that position and Krishna says, just close your eyes, everything will be all right, we'll be a bit doubtful, we'll be a bit hesitant. That really, if I just close my eyes, nothing will happen to me. The forest fire is just right there. Any time it's going to come to me. Shouldn't we run away somewhere? Shouldn't you do something, put some water on the fire? Ordinarily, we'll have a lot of doubts. But the cowherd boys, they had so much faith in Krishna that immediately, just in an instant, they just closed their eyes, having full faith that Krishna will protect us. And the acharyas, they explain that this forest fire, which is coming towards the cowherd boys, it represents the samsara dava. It represents the forest fire of material existence. And when Krishna is saying to close your eyes, it's Krishna instructing all of his devotees to not get allured by the samsara dava, not get allured by the blazing fire of material existence. When Krishna is saying, close your eyes, don't look at the fire, Krishna is instructing his devotees, don't get allured by Maya's allurements of sense gratification. Don't get allured by all the so-called sense enjoyment, sense gratification which is available in mature existence. Close your eyes, don't look towards Maya, and instead take shelter of me. So in this way, one of the acharyas explains the spiritual significance of this pastime. So this is something we can remember. If you look in some gift shops, you'll see there'll be like these three monkeys. There'll be one monkey closing his eyes, one monkey closing his ears, another monkey closing his mouth. Once on book distribution, one lady, she gave me some Lakshmi as donation. Along with the Lakshmi, she had a gift shop, and she went to a gift shop and she gave me a little fridge magnet with three koalas doing the same thing. One koala closing his eyes, one koala closing his ears, another closing his mouth. So this is actually Krishna's instruction. When the koala is closing his eyes, it's Krishna instructing us. Don't look at bad things. Don't look into material nature, looking for sense gratification. Instead, say no to Maya and say yes to me. My Guru Maharaj says that every moment we have this choice to make. Every moment we have given this, as part and parcels of Krishna, we all have a tiny independence. And the independence we have is to choose either Krishna or Maya. And my Guru Maharaj explains, every moment we have that choice to either choose Krishna or to choose Maya. And my Guru Maharaj says, the more we choose Krishna over Maya, the more stronger we'll become in our spiritual life. And my Guru Maharaj explains, it's just like a muscle. Some time ago on TV they had this ad given by the government about how to overcome cigarettes. And this ad was showing that a person flexing his muscles, and the ad was saying that willpower is just like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So just like in lifting weights, the more weights you lift, the stronger your muscle will become, the stronger your biceps will be. So in the same way, my Guru Maharaj is explaining that our spiritual willpower, our choice muscles will become stronger and stronger the more we choose Krishna over Maya. And this choice is there every single moment. Every single moment we have this choice, whether I'm going to choose Krishna or I'm going to choose Maya. And if we keep choosing Krishna, 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 and saying no to Maya, then our choice muscles, our willpower, spiritual willpower, determination will increase more and more. And my Guru Maharaj says there will come a time when Maya won't even come. It will just be only Krishna. After practicing Krishna consciousness for a long time, after constantly, moment after moment, just choosing Krishna, Krishna, Krishna over Maya, there will come a point in our Krishna consciousness where Maya just won't be there. That distraction, those allurements won't even come. And my Guru Maharaj was giving the example of chanting. At our current stage of chanting, when we chant our japa, the Maya's allurements are stronger than Krishna. Maya's allurements are stronger than Krishna's allurements. We'll be chanting, but so many different distractions will come into our mind. And it'll seem like those thoughts and distractions which are coming to our mind is stronger than the holy name. Like externally we'll be chanting Hare Krishna, but in our mind we'll just be thinking of something else. So my Guru Maharaj explains, at this point of time, as practicing sadhakas, it seems like the voice of our mind, these distractions, these other thoughts and desires, they're stronger or they're more louder than the holy name. And it seems like always a constant struggle to bring the mind back to hear the holy name, and then you chant attentively, then again the mind will go somewhere else, then again you have to bring the mind back to the holy name. But my Guru Maharaj explains, if you keep practicing hearing the holy name, there will come a time when the equation will be switched. At this moment, it seems like the distractions are stronger than the holy name. At this moment, it seems like the holy name is in the background and our thoughts and desires are at the front. But there will come a time in our Krishna consciousness, after practicing for many years, where it will be the other way around, where Krishna's holy name will just be at the front, and when we chant, we will just naturally hear the holy name. No distractions, nothing will come. If it comes, it will just be in the background just for a short time, then it will just go away. And the holy name, the sound of the holy name, the Maha Mantra, will take the top seat in our consciousness. So this, my Guru Maharaj explains, will all happen naturally over a period of time of practicing Krishna consciousness. So this is one lesson the Acharyas give. Say we can learn from the pastime where Krishna instructs his cowherd boys to close their eyes. So the forest fire represents the blazing fire, material existence. Krishna is saying, say no to this material world, say no to sense gratification, say no to all sorts of sense gratification that Maya is putting forward to you. Instead, close your eyes, instead remember my glories, instead close your eyes and take shelter of my holy name and have faith. So to do that, one requires great faith, and that faith comes from the spiritual master. When we first start our spiritual life, we don't have much faith, but by associating with devotees, by seeing how nicely and how with such enthusiasm and faith they're practicing devotional service, that gives us some inspiration. That also inspires faith in us. So if we don't have strong faith in spiritual life, the way to get more faith is to just associate with other devotees of Lord who have strong faith. By associating with them, we can also, by seeing them, we also derive confidence that yes, this devotee, he's been practicing, the process is working for him, he seems pretty happy, he seems pretty blissful, he's engaging very nice in devotional service. I can also be like him. What he's doing, I can also do. And this is something the Acharyas say of what sadhu sangha is. Sadhu sangha is when you see other devotees around you and you take inspiration from that. This devotee, just look how regularly he's coming to Mangalati, coming for morning program, just like we have a Brajaprem Prabhu and his wife. Every day, no matter what, they always come for Mangalati and Darshanati, Guru Puja. They'll drive to the temple and attend the morning program. So one can look at them and take inspiration that, these devotees, they're so pakka, no matter what happens, they always wake up on time, come to temple for morning program. I should also be like them. If they can do it, I can also do it. Let me also try and endeavor in that way. And then one sees another devotee cooking so nicely or cleaning so nicely in the kitchen in the background. This devotee, he's serving Gopinath so nicely, he's putting so much hard work and energy to cleaning the kitchen, to cleaning the temple. What am I doing? I'm being very lazy. If this devotee is working so nicely, he's just like me, I can also be like him. Let me also try, let me also be like him. So this is what the Acharyas explain Sadhu Sangha is. Sadhu Sangha is when we look and we find the wonderful good Vaishnava qualities of others, the wonderful ways other devotees are serving Radha Gopinath, other ways they are serving Srila Prabhupada, and we take inspiration for them. And taking inspiration for them, we also endeavor, we also aspire to also serve like them. Not that we fall into inferiority complex and think, these guys, these devotees, they're so elevated, great, I'm so fallen, I can't be like them. No, instead, one should think, okay, they're doing so nicely, let me also follow in their footsteps. Yes, I can't be as good as them, but let me also follow in their footsteps and also do to the best of my ability. In this way, one takes sadhu sangha. This is the real meaning of associating with devotees, where one takes inspiration from other devotees and follows in their footsteps to better his service. And this is, you can say, spiritual competition. One sees another devotee doing better than him. One thinks, okay, this devotee is doing such nice service for Gopinath. Let me also follow in his footsteps and increase my service. So Krishna will get even more pleasure with me increasing my service. And my Guru Maharaj explains that this is actually a great Vaishnava sport. So Vaishnava sport is when you look and appreciate other devotees' wonderful qualities and you take inspiration from that. So that's the first part of the purport. We'll continue on with the rest of the purport. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained his position clearly, but the demoniac atheist student squeezes out an interpretation to suit his own purpose and misleads unfortunate followers into the same mentality. Such unfortunate persons merely pick up some slogans from the great book of knowledge, but are unable to estimate the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees like Uddhava, however, are never misled by such atheistic opportunists. So in the second half of the purport, Prabhupada is explaining how that fools and rascals out there who don't understand Krishna's pastime, they just interpret Krishna's pastimes in their own ways, just to suit their own needs, to fulfill their own selfish propagandas, and they write books, commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and the only result is that they just confuse the common men of society. That's why it's so important that we go out there and distribute more and more books, because there's so many books out there on our Vedic knowledge. There's so many different commentaries written on Bhagavad Gita, which is out there on the shelf. And there are so many people out there who are getting burnt by the blazing fire of material existence. They're getting burnt out by their family life, by their work life, by the whole virus and the economic situation. They're really frustrated with their life and they're seeking for answers and they want to take to spirituality. But when they go on Google and they search for some spiritual gathering, all these bogus Mayavadi groups, so-called yoga gatherings, where just Mayavad philosophy is preached, they get lured into these holes or these persons who are actually cheating innocent public. So there's so many people out there searching for answers, searching for help. They're really suffering due to the blazing fire of material existence. But it's so unfortunate that there's so many bogus spiritual groups out there that are misleading all these suffering people of society. There's so many bogus interpretations of Bhagavad Gita out there on the bookshelf. When people want answers, they look online for Bhagavad Gita. There's so many range of bogus Bhagavad Gitas. In the bookshelves, in Dimox and other bookstores, there'll be so many interpretations given by Mayavadis, just politicians, and as Prabhupada is saying, just by the demoniac atheistic class of men who write interpretations on the Shastras. That's why Prabhupada is saying that, Prabhupada explains that it's so important, it's such an urgent need for us to distribute more and more books, to distribute more and more transcendental knowledge. Because there's so many people out there suffering, there's so many people out there who are going through so much hardship and they're seeking for answers. If we don't give them the real medicine, they'll take the false medicine, and instead of the false medicine curing the disease will get even more worse. So it's a very serious situation, and my Guru Maharaj explains, a lot of Prabhupada disciples, they explain this, that when you read Prabhupada's purports, you can feel a sense of urgency in his purports, like as if, this is like an emergency, you have to become Krishna conscious, you have to go out, preach, you have to do this. Prabhupada's not saying, okay, relax, take it easy, you have a lot of time. But my Guru Maharaj, I've heard Radhanath Maharaj, a lot of Prabhupada disciples, they explain that after reading Prabhupada's purports, this one feeling they get is like the urgency, this mood of emergency with which Prabhupada preaches in his purports, that you have, human life is short, you only have this many years. At any point of time death can come, don't screw up, don't ruin this human form of life, become Krishna conscious. There's so many people out there who are suffering, they're all going to the hellish planets. You become Krishna conscious, you go out there, you give them this message of Krishna. Don't waste your life, go and save the people. In this way, Prabhupada, with such great urgency, is preaching this message. So, in this way, we should also take Prabhupada's words to heart, take Mahaprabhu's word to heart, and we ourselves need to take shelter of the process, and we ourselves need to go out there and give this process to others. And for those of us who have distributed books before, you get to see this every day, how people are suffering. Especially recent times when we were doing door-to-door book distribution, you get to, Krishna allows you to see more clearly how people are suffering. Because generally when we're distributing books on the streets, like say in town hall or Vineyard Station, just outside station, sometimes it seems that most people are happy. People are going to work here and there. You'll see couples laughing together and giggling, groups of men or groups of ladies laughing and giggling and going together, having a good time. So sometimes when you're distributing books on the streets, it seems that people aren't suffering in this material world. We read in Bhagavatam, okay, everyone is suffering in blazing fire material existence. But when you go out on the streets, sometimes it seems that, no, people are having a good time. Guy and girl are going together hand in hand. They seem to have a good time. Bunch of guys are laughing, drinking some nice drinks, talking and eating at a nice restaurant. It seems everyone is having fun. Maybe one or two people, it seems like, okay, they're not having a good day. But in general, most people out there, they seem pretty happy. But one realization we had when we distribute books door to door, Krishna, he gives that vision to see more clearly how people are suffering. Because at home, people are there in their, their home, and you can see exactly what is actually going on in their lives. Outside, people put up a bit of a facade, and my Guru Maharaj explains that although externally to our senses, it seems that some people might be happy, we should, instead of not seeing through our material vision, we should see through the eyes of the Shastra. We should have Shastra Chakshus. We shouldn't trust our imperfect material senses. Shastra says that anyone who has forgotten Krishna, for him there is no happiness, so we need to see through those eyes. All these people out there, although externally Maya is showing them to be very happy and peaceful and having a good time, I have to follow what the Shastra says. I can't trust my material vision, I have to trust the Shastras. Shastra declares that anyone who is not a devotee, anyone who hasn't taken shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, anyone who has forgotten Krishna, he cannot be happy, he must be suffering. So one is to see through that vision. See, we have to understand that when people are out there at work or at some party or going to a cinema, they put up this face of how they're very happy and blissful, just so they can probably show amongst their friends and associates. But their real life we will know when we come to their home. At home we realize, okay, what are all the hardships you're going through. So when you go door to door and distribute books, you'll see that you'll hear people inside shouting, husband and wife shouting at each other, kids screaming in the background. Sometimes you see cigarettes all over the front, empty alcohol bottles, and then you get to understand that what life is like for an ordinary person. Their life is just, at home they're constantly shouting and having fights with their children, with their wife. You see all the cigarettes and the beer bottles and you understand what they're going through. They're taking into so much intoxication. And why do the people take into intoxication? Prabhupada explains, the only reason people take to intoxication is just to forget their miseries. So externally, the media or Maya will make it seem that people, they just drink or they take to cigarettes or drugs, marijuana, just to have a good time. That all these people who are taking to intoxication, they're doing this to have a good time, they're very happy and they're very jolly. But actually it's the other way around. Any person out there who is taken to intoxication, the only reason they take to intoxication is because they're miserable, is because they're suffering. And because they want to forget that suffering, because they want to forget the anxiety they're in, they take to intoxication. Because when one takes to intoxication, he forgets all of his miseries. He goes to the intoxicated state. So in this way, Prabhupada helps us understand that although the material world makes it seem that all those people out there on intoxication, they're having a good time, they're enjoying, actually it's the other way around. All those people out there on intoxication, they're suffering the most. The very reason they take into intoxication is because they're suffering through so much anxiety, they're going through so much pain in their lives that they just can't face it up front. And they need something to forget that misery, at least for a short period of time. That's why they take to alcohol, that's why they take to drugs. So at least temporarily they can forget everything and go to an intoxicated state. And so this is what one sees when one goes door to door. You see for a common household how much trouble and anxiety they have to go through. There's constant arguments amongst the family, dealing with children, dealing with the dogs, and they have to go through intoxication. You hear from people on door to door how they're just broken up with their wife or their husband, and how they've just lost their job due to COVID and they have to do this or that, how they're broke. In this way, in recent times when we're doing door to door, we got to experience more visibly of how people are actually suffering out there in this material world. And when you get to, and especially you get to meet a lot of older people at home when you go door to door. On the streets, generally in big cities, you don't see older people coming out so much. But at home, that's where all the elderly class of society, they're at home. And when you knock on the door and an elderly person comes, sometimes it will take them a few minutes just to come to the door. And when finally the door opens, you'll see an old lady or old man crouched, hunchback like that, with a walking chair. And they can't even stand up. They can barely move. And they'll be interested in getting a book. But sometimes they'll be so weak. So one time it happened that one Mataji, she wanted a book, but she was so weak, she couldn't even pick up her wallet and take cash out to give me Lakshmi. She was picking up a wallet and her hand was shivering like this, and she was like, please help me take. And I took the Lakshmi from her, and then she took, and then she slowly walked back to her house. Sometimes you see old people, they'll see the book and they'll be very fascinated, and they'll say that, actually I love reading books. My whole life I've been reading so many books, and I would love to read this book that you're giving me. But unfortunately I have this disease, macular degeneration disease, and I can't see, my eyes are gone, I can't see anymore, and what to do? And like this you meet so many elderly people, they have going through so much diseases and hardships due to old age, and when you see all this, then you get to realize that actually this material world is really just a place of suffering. No matter who you are, whether you're young, you're just being completely wasted on drugs, intoxication. You see youngsters completely wasted on drugs. You see some youngsters with slashes all across their arms. And the reason they'll have all these slashes is because they're going through so much depression that they cut themselves. Or they're injecting injections into their blood with drugs. So whether you're young or you're in the middle, dealing with family life, or you're old, suffering through old age and disease, every single person of society out there that we see, they're all suffering through the pangs of mature existence. So that's why Prabhupada in his purports again and again he's emphasizing so much that this human form of life is so short, don't waste it. You first become Krishna conscious yourself, then you go out there and you help others. There's so many people out there that are suffering so much, and we need to go and help them. We'll stop here. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Gaur Pramanande Hari.